Hello, Janksters, and welcome to another edition of the MagicJank podcast, the weekly show where members of Team MagicJank get together and we talk about magical gatherings while we're having our own little magical gathering here on the show. It's always a delight. So my name's Graham. I go by HamHawks42 on the internet, and I'm joined by a couple of lovely gentlemen. First off, we have Jaffer. How's it going, Jaffer? Welcome back to the show.
Hello. I'm happy to be back.
Oh my goodness.
Seems like I'll only be back when I host tournaments.
You know, making sure that you're back when you host when tournaments are hosted, or just if like anything's happening with Explorer or Pioneer, I definitely want your take on it. That's for sure. That and whenever we can get you when schedules align, because you're good people. Speaking of good people, we also have Carlo C. Favredo Jr. in the house. How are we doing, man?
Me, good people? I'm
Indeed.
trying to be. I put on a little Santa hat today because it is the holidays, so that must mean that I'm not on the naughty list. So yeah, I'm here.
Looking very festive. Those folks with the video feed on YouTube right now are enjoying that, I'm sure. So good work. Meanwhile, Jaffer and I are we're just in hoodies. Although to be fair, our cats are we'll make appearances. Jaffer's is I believe that's Tiberius just hanging out. Right.
Yes, he is alive. If anybody asks in the comments, and he is not a headrest.
Yeah,
See,
it's not some novelty
moving.
headrest. Yep, real cat can confirm. All right, good stuff. So Jaffer, so we got you today, and thank you for being available. We appreciate it. You hosted an event, like an Explorer event. I would say Pioneer, but it was on Arena, so it was competitive Pioneer effectively. But yeah, the Mosh Pit today. We had around 40 competitors, and Carlo and I we were both there as well in various capacities. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to be on camera and talk smart over the gameplay and narrate as Carlo was paying the ward cost on removing Valgavots, which oof. But yeah, so it was a lot of fun. So in lieu of me coming up with a proper question to get you started, what were your thoughts on the event, and kind of what were your takeaways? Because I gotta say it was a lot of fun from my perspective. So I'd love to hear your take on it.
So I thought overall this event went better than the last one.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed it more. I wasn't as stressed out. Last one, for those who didn't see it or hear about it, was a standard event, which was fine. That's fine, that's standard. But I was casting, judging, and running the whole thing all at once.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
And I figured, okay, let's be smart this time, and I got more people to cast. So I had HamHawks, MTG Joe for Swiss, and then for top 8, I had Mason Clark and Elliot Raff doing commentary. And all 4 of them did an amazing job. Would love to have them back again, if they all like to be.
Well, I can't speak for the other 3 guys, but you know where to find me. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
HamHawks does like to yap, can confirm.
I love it. Oh, it's my favorite. Yeah. Yeah. Very
overall,
cool, man.
I thought it was a great time. The metagame seemed mostly diverse. Like looking at it, I think I saw. Obviously, it was a lot of Rakdos decks. Obviously,
Yeah.
that's
Sure.
That's like there's always a lot of Rakdos decks in Pioneer.
Mhm.
I know it was Explorer. I'm gonna call it Pioneer. I don't
That's
care
right.
what anybody says in the comments. It's Pioneer effectively to me. I hope they actually change the name to a way it's less confusing to newer players. Because it is pretty confusing to newer players. I get that in my chat all the time.
No.
Sure.
But we can talk about that later. But overall, like, I thought Melee had a metagame breakdown tab. I thought they used to. But like in our top 8, we had Rakdos Demons. Oh no, hold on. My bad.
Well,
I'm just looking at deck lists.
Yeah, all good. One thing that I want to call out, you mentioned that there were a lot of Rakdos, and there were a number of decks that were representing Rakdos, and a number that were Jund, where the green was more or less just a splash. Like that color combination was very well represented, and I think with good reason. But interestingly enough, when we say Rakdos, there were, out of 40 deck lists, there was, I don't know, a dozen Rakdos decks or whatever the case may be. They almost all looked different from one another. Like there were Rakdos Creativity, there was Rakdos Sacrifice, there was more Rakdos Midrange. We had Rakdos Aggro that were like very much the red aggro list with, the Cal Sellsword and maybe 1 or 2 other, sideboard pieces. Like there were just every different version that you can imagine was represented in one way or another. So even though, they were all in the same color combination, they were vastly different decks,
Yeah.
and I thought that was really cool to see. So it was more diverse than it sounds, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. And the top 8 was even very diverse too. Like
Mm-hmm.
our top 8 in first place, we had Boros aggro, and not your typical Boros aggro either. It was just like it seemed like mono red splashing burn spells, like mono red aggro
Mm-hmm.
splashing burn spells.
Mm-hmm.
We had Jund Creativity, Jund Sacrifice, Rakdos Transmogrify, Rakdos Demons, Nivdalite, with and then Enigmatic Incarnation, who is a certain the player is a certain person in this phone call, and or Discord call, and then
Mm-hmm.
Rakdos Aggro. So like all different decks.
Yeah.
For the most part.
Yeah, it was pretty wild. Yeah, Carlo, what was it like playing in there, and especially running something that was, I suppose, off meta, which is weird because Enigmatic Incarnation is a pretty popular, or has been a popular strategy in the past.
Yeah. So I said that the last tournament I played in that I was gonna that I cast, right. So the standard tournament, I
Mhm.
was like, I'm gonna play the Pioneer one because I don't
Yeah.
normally play Pioneer except if I go to something special. And I had gone to the regional championships in DC and was playing some Pioneer while I was there and was playing Enigmatic Incarnation, and that was right when Duskmourn came out. So we had the Overlords. So the question was, how strong are the Overlords in Enigmatic Incarnation? And the answer is very strong.
Crazy.
Turns out I could play like Overlord of the Hauntwoods on turn 3 and turn 4 Enigmatic Incarnation and turn my Overlord into another Overlord, or some other 6-drop creature like Linvala the Preserver that I played today. So it was fun. It was fun times. The matches weren't easy. I mean, we played some Magic today.
Mm-hmm.
Staring down the barrel of Valgavoth multiple times and being able to get rid of Valgavoth from the board, not giving a damn about the ward cost, was a fun highlight.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Getting to play 20 extra cards in your deck too is pretty sweet. Playing Yorion as the companion. And that's letting you blink a bunch of Overlords and your Nowhere to Runs, which are effectively removal spells. I got to sideboard like an Elish Norn, and if I remember correctly, I ended up landing an Elish Norn and then playing a Nowhere to Run and killing 2 creatures, and I'm like, this is great. And
Yeah.
the majority of the deck I'm playing outside the lands was standard legal. So, like Frank Carson told you, if you could be playing a Pioneer deck in standard, you probably should be, because the power level is high in those cards. We don't have like the best mana in standard like you do in Pioneer. Pioneer has access to the Triomes, has access to the Shock lands. The Verge lands work really well with Triomes, by the way.
Yeah, they do.
Incredibly well. So that makes your turn 2 up the beanstalk very consistent. And your beanstalks are triggering all the time, and you can blink them out to play with Yorion and draw more cards. So you don't end up like decking yourself from drawing too many cards, especially since you got 20 more in your deck. So it was good. I thought my weakness was going to be to the Transmogrify decks or the Creativity decks, and that was true. I ended up being able to handle, obviously, the Rakdos Transmogrify deck because they only had Valgavoth as a threat. And then in top 8, my top 8 match, I ended up playing against the Jund Creativity player, came in second. And while I can hold removal spells in my hand, i.e. Leyline Binding, Fatal Push, Vanishing Verse, against Rakdos Transmogrify, it's not as effective against Creativity, because Creativity can have multiple targets, and I just can't cast multiple removal spells. So even if they X equals 2 and I deal with 1, well, they're still going to get 1 threat off the top. So a little bit of a harder matchup.
That one play to finish the game off or match off was backbreaking for you. Carlo had like a really good board stay of a bunch of enchantment creatures and some tokens, and then all of a sudden, back to nature.
Destroy all enchantments for 2 mana at instant speed. Yeah, and it was so funny because obviously, we're playing the games and the stream at the time was on like a 5-minute delay or something. And so after I lost, I go over to the to Jaffer stream and they switch over to my screen just in time for me to get back to natured. And I was like, well, at least there's a clip of this somewhere.
Yes, exactly.
You
Oh my
know.
goodness.
But yeah, obviously we know that this card is in the format. My opponent also, I would assume that the creativity players believe that the Overlord deck is, or the Incarnation deck is strong against them, so they need to have cards to deal with their board. And I mean, hey, if you just got to pay 2 mana to kill like 5 things on my board, then I would do that too.
Oh, 100%.
So yeah, 100%. They came prepared. I knew it wasn't going to be an easy matchup, so it was good though.
Yeah.
I think I played okay. I snuck into the top 8. I ended up winning the first 2 matches, lost the second 2, and then won a third against somebody who had 9 points. So I had to squeak, and I was able to squeak, so that was good.
Nice.
But yeah, it was a
Yeah.
good day. It was a good day, and I was glad to see, the diverse decks that were out there. The top 8 being all different decks means that hopefully Pioneer is healthy. Or at least the folks who were playing in this tournament chose to play a diverse series of decks.
There's a lot of new faces in this event compared to past ones.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Which is good. I'm happy about that. I think it's part of like I posted it to the Pioneer subreddit and they didn't like delete it. I'm used to like anything to post on Reddit being deleted if I'm promoting something.
Yeah.
Well, that's all very nice.
That was good.
Yeah.
The only complaint, and I don't know if this is a complaint about like the format in general, considering hey, we talked about last time the different bans and how they banned Jengantha in this format and in Modern too. So if y'all haven't listened to that podcast, go listen to the previous episode because Ham and I talk about it in depth. For me, it didn't make any sense why they made that ban, but amongst other things, for them to ban that card from Pioneer but let Fable the Mirror Breaker exist is kind of strange. Because, like, that's a really, really strong card. And hey, listen, other people might have other opinions. They banned this card out of Standard because it was too strong in Standard, right? And it just enables so many things to happen. You being able to get, the creature token, a possible extra mana ramp, card draw and discard, and then the ability to copy things like Hiki Jiki. The card is crazy good. And the Rakdos deck in this format, the Rakdos mid-range deck, gets to play this and Unholy Annex in the same deck. And so the Rakdos mid-range deck's got to be like the strongest deck in Pioneer.
It's nuts.
It just has so many threats, so many like really good cards. And some of the Rakdos decks used to play Jengantha, and honestly, they probably weren't winning because of Jengantha. So that was the argument from last week.
Yeah, exactly. Like that deck does not care. Like, it was funny the way that MTG Joe put it on the commentary today. This comment was like, "Well, they unbanned the 15th sideboard slot."
Right.
Like, that's, oh no, it's
yeah.
So
it's
kind of wild.
That's maybe my only complaint about the format.
As a Magic player that plays Fabled Mirror Breaker in almost every Pioneer deck I play,
because why wouldn't you?
Like it's a good card, but like my counter argument to that is, yes, it does enable some like combo decks to play with it, like the Transmogrify creativity decks, but if you take that card away, you are actually hurting the fair decks, which Rakdos Demons is a fair deck compared to all the other decks. Yes, they do like game train you while they draw cards, but like and have 8 enchantments that draw cards. But like if you take that away, you're kind of taking away an engine from a fair deck that will kind of hurt a little bit, and like they're gonna have to replace it with something else that's not as good. But like, I think it's fine. My opinion, I think it's fine in the format, and like the format's very diverse. I don't think Rakdos Demons is the best deck. I think it is a really good deck. It's just Rakdos midrange evolved, like, and Rakdos midrange has always had like somewhat a little above like 50% win rate, something like that.
Even before Demons, though, like I remember going to RCQs or just like store events. It was Pioneer, and like Rakdos was always at the top of the format.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at the top of the format, and I'm talking before demons. Like I'm talking about when Fable the Mirror Breaker into Sheoldred, both cards standard legal, and that deck was at the top of the format. You know,
So my other argument on that too, like yes, that is a thing that you would always see, but it is it is a deck that is easy to get into the format with, especially if you're coming from standard. You're gonna have most of those cards already. It's gonna be more budget friendly to you, as a new player to pioneer. And two, it's like Jund from modern. It is the mid range deck that if you are very well like you will have a lot of knowledge of the format, you are going to like I don't. I'm going to say it the wrong way. I'm going to say reap the benefits, but I don't think that's the right term. Like it is a deck that, yes, it's easy to get into the format with, and if you are very knowledgeable about the format, the metagame, and other decks as well, you are going to get more use out of the deck than an average Joe Schmo that just picks it up because they think it's a good deck and it'll beat anything.
Anytime a mid-range deck like that can be excellent in the meta, good players are going to benefit from it. Like, I have found in the past, when standard was very mid-range heavy, like when every other match was some flavor of Esper Rafine, I remember hearing the pros going into competitions going, oh, this standard's great. Like, this is the best standard I've ever played in. Meanwhile, like, I'm over here like, Rafine again? Can I please do something else? Because the gameplay of those kinds of decks like rewards like skilled players who have been working to hone those skills. There isn't some kind of goofy combo trick. You just got to get there with good attacks, good blocks, good sequencing. Your fundamentals just need to be on point to execute with these decks. And so if you've been working at honing those skills, these decks are going to feel really good. And I can appreciate that. And it's funny. So I completely agree with. It's funny, you guys are disagreeing, but I agree with both of you. At the end of the day, I think Fable the Mirror Breaker is a format defining card, but it is not a format warping card. And so I don't think it needs to be banned. I don't know that we're necessarily calling for a ban. I think the fact that Giganta was banned and Fable wasn't is like where things kind of seem silly to me, because like Giganta wasn't a problematic card either, frankly. So I don't really understand their logic. And then to leave other companions untouched within the format. And as somebody who runs Karuga often as my companion because I don't know what's good for me, I don't know. I look at this and be like, if Giganta was the best case for a companion, it gave you some deck building requirements that you had to think about, and you got a slight advantage for satisfying those requirements. Like it seemed, and it saw play in competitive decks and was a meaningful player in those decks. It looked like the best case for a success story for companions as they were designed, and it got banned. And so like, okay, if the way that companions were designed is problematic, what are we doing here? But anyway, Fable is just more common, and it's just one of those where if you're in red, there's kind of no reason not to run it, and if you're not in red, do a serious consideration about your deck. Is like, can you put red in there to get Fable in?
Or just play 5-color piles.
Well, that's also an option.
Just play 5-color piles.
When in doubt, But it's funny because actually during commentary today, Joe brought up an idea. MTG Joe, over on YouTube and everything. He was in the booth with me today. It was a delightful time. He introduced an interesting idea that I hadn't considered, and that was if they were to ban something to encourage format diversity, why not hit Fatal Push? Again, not necessarily calling for a ban right now, because I think more than any bans, I think what we need are more events that get people out to the stores brewing this format and experimenting and pushing the envelope. I think we just need more eyeballs on the format. I think that's what that I think is what the format needs more than anything. But if you wanted to ban something to encourage format diversity, Fatal Push is it's the removal spell. Every single creature that you're considering for every deck ever, you have to be aware of how it lines up against Fatal Push. With the understanding that either it's going to get tagged by a Fatal Push, but it pulls the Fatal Push, so make that part of your game plan, or you run Overlord of the Hauntwoods because it doesn't. And it's anyway. This is another format-defining card that is interesting. Any kind of mid-range deck, if you have access to black, you should just have it in there because it's great.
I don't think it'd be a good idea to ban Fatal Push. I think it's a similar argument to ban Thoughtseize.
Right.
Fatal Push is a premium removal spell, but like, and a lot of people are running it because it is the only good premium 1 mana removal spell we have in the format. So because of that, a lot of people are going to play black mana
Sure.
decks, and because of that, you're just going to play Thoughtseize. There's
Sure.
so many people out there that hate their hand being touched in the game that they want the card Thoughtseize banned. And if you were to ban that, then the combo decks are going to run rampant and be everywhere.
True.
Yep.
Listen, I was playing the 5-color
those same
pile
people are going to
today.
complain about that. Yep. Yeah.
I was on the 5-color pile today, and I had 4 Fatal Push in the main and 4 Thoughtseize in the sideboard.
As you
Playing,
should.
you know, a black-based deck. Even though it's a 5-color pile, a lot of the cards are, you know, green, black, white based. It's basically an Abzan deck, splash and everything else.
Yeah.
But yeah, you 100%. If I don't have Thoughtseize against the Transmogrify and Indomitable Creativity players, I probably lose.
Yeah.
So it's just a must-have card in this format.
Yeah.
But that's what allows it to be like sort of healthy, right? It allows for the combo decks to do well, allows for the you know, aggressive decks and the mid-range decks all to be pretty balanced against each other. Whereas like in Modern, I mean, granted, you got to study new data since they just made a bunch of bannings and unbannings, and
Sure,
may regret like a decision or two 6 months from now, but who knows? That deck Modern is mostly like combo centric of a format. You know, which strategy can you pull off? How can you win by turn 3 or 4 the easiest? And what combinations of cards get you there? Now in Modern, you can play literally Faithless Looting and Persist and Arcana Cruelty and play on turn 2 if you want.
seems good. Yeah.
There no amount of Thoughtseize is stopping you unless you turn 1 Thoughtseize to deal with their Persist. So you know, this card really shines in Pioneer. So yeah, it's a necessary evil.
Yep. And honestly, I'm 100% on board with with all of this. I genuinely believe that the card pool of Pioneer right now is in a good state, and it feels like there's a lot of good back and forth. And cards like Thoughtseize and Fatal Push are best in class at what they do, and being so inexpensive is important. But we're also at a point right now where like the red decks are putting out so much power onto the board so fast that mid-range decks do need 1 mana answers to deal with it, you know, one way or the other. And Thoughtseize has kind of an interesting tension because if you're going up against aggro, you're losing 2 life to play it, and you're probably not going to get something that's particularly valuable. And the old adage, you can't Thoughtseize the top of the deck. There were a number of games today where we saw, you know, somebody hit a Thoughtseize, strip the Indomitable Creativity, only to have the person draw the Indomitable Creativity.
That's the arena bug, though.
I know, right?
Listen, I'm not saying it's an actual arena bug, but it happens all the time. It even happens in Standard when you duress your opponent. You duress like some like Leyline Binding, and they still get the Leyline Binding immediately off the top of the deck.
Yep.
I'm not saying put on your tinfoil hats. Don't do that. Santa hats, please. But
which under tinfoil
they happen
Santa
to be
hats.
Tinfoil Santa hats. We can do that.
Exactly.
You know, variants exist in Magic, but when it happens a little more often than normal, I have questions.
Yeah. We're just asking questions. That's all. We're not saying we're just asking questions.
Yeah.
But with those moments, we always remember those. You know, we always remember those moments for sure.
Yeah, and, it's like the moments that we remember when we have a 2-land starting hand and we yell at the shuffler because we should have gotten more lands off the top of the deck, but we got mana screwed. And it's like, no, you should have just not kept a 2-lander. Or, you know, when you keep a 6-lander and then you continue to draw more lands off the top of the deck, you probably shouldn't have kept the 6-lander. You know, it's just those arguments.
When often it just comes down to mulligan decisions.
Yeah.
But yeah, so honestly, I feel like right now, the Pioneer format seems like it's in a really good state. I want to see more people playing it. That's the bottom line. And and in reality, the other thing is having a good core of a deck is that's important in any format. You know, knowing that I can start with Fatal Push, Thoughtseize, and Fable the Mirror Breaker, and then fill in some stuff around that, depending on kind of if I want to lean Sacrifice or if I want to lean Demons, whatever I'm feeling. And knowing that there are a couple of core cards that will give you some play in most matchups. I don't know. I don't think that's necessarily a problem. You know, having something else that isn't in a similar level. I guess, come to think of it, Boros Charm, it puts up a ton of work in those burn decks, and they now have Bolt Wave. So you could kind of argue that for that kind of a deck, I don't know. Anyway, actually right now the general power level is very, very high. So the fact that these cards are amongst the best.
But also, it speaks to the majority, like what we saw today. If you are ever interested in getting into Pioneer, just make a little bit of upgrades to the standard deck that you're playing. Right? I mean, the deck I played today, outside of the lands, is standard Zero Overlords, right? With the exception of a couple different removal spells, most of which are commons and uncommon. Yeah, and better mana, right?
Well, and Enigmatic Incarnation itself. But to be fair, though, like there have been some Enigmatic decks that are like full-on toolbox where it's all about them. Your deck, it had the Enigmatic Incarnation because you could just kind of do an Overlord chain all the way up the top, which was pretty neat. But it wasn't critical for the game plan. You could do just fine without it. Yeah.
Yeah. And even Go Calper today played don't do this at home. A 14 land mono red deck with Leyline of Resonance, and every single card in that deck was standard legal. But 14 mountains.
But and his sideboard was 4 plains, 4 island, 4 forest.
Yeah,
I think it was 5 of each, but it was like, that was the most baller sideboard move I think I've ever seen. It was literally 15 basic lands.
Yeah,
don't do this at home, please.
Yeah, it was just the gnarliest choice, and we got to watch a couple of matches that Go-Cover was in, and it more often than not it actually kind of worked. Like, it was kind of insane. But when you can hit, on the games when the top decks, if the top 10 cards lined up, and a Leyline of Resonance or 2, which we did see in some cases, dropped a creature and then a pump spell, that was game. The ability to put 20 damage on the opponent for a total throughout the entire game of like 4 mana is kind of wild, and that deck can do it. So yeah, it was fun to see, and sure enough, it's a standard deck. It's a full on standard aggro deck. I mean, yeah, wild. Anyway, good stuff. So yeah, overall, play Pioneer, everybody. One thing on Arena, I've been dabbling a little bit with Explorer this week. Also, partly because I wanted to get kind of a little bit more familiar with the metagame going into this tournament, but also because Bring to Light is here, and I thought, hey, why not big multicolor toolbox? Let's see what happens. And I kind of built a couple of my own variants of it and just tried slotting in random cards, and it was a lot of fun. I did enjoy it. I didn't do well, but I did have a lot of fun with it. And I experienced something on the Arena ladder that I haven't in a while. And I was doing best of 1 Explorer ranked, right? Just to get a feel for these goofy sideboards, right? Or goofy toolbox decks. And I actually found myself going up against the same person multiple times in a relatively short period. And the rank mismatch. I'm in Diamond, and I was getting paired up against people in Platinum fairly often. Which is an indicator that particular queue doesn't have as many players in it as most of the other queues. Coming from Standard, where if you have to wait more than 5 seconds for a match, it's a slow time, on the queue. So this one, waiting 30 seconds for a rank mismatch, that was an interesting experience, and it definitely backs up the numbers that we've seen. Because WotC does release the usage data every so often across formats, and in those, Explorer is fairly low. It seems that way. So I don't know, Jaffer, what are your thoughts on that? Yeah, please, because you spend more time there than I do by a lot. So yeah.
Yeah. So whenever I'm playing Explorer, I only play best of 3 on Arena. I don't touch best of 1 no matter what format. Like, nothing against best of 1 for those that like it. It's just I personally do not enjoy playing best of 1. I don't find any enjoyment in it.
They're very different, so that's fair. Yeah.
For best of 3 Explorer ladder, the queue wait times ever since Pioneer Masters came out has been like about a minute, maybe less than a minute, like 40 to 60 seconds.
Okay.
And like hearing what you're explaining, that kind of sounds like it kind of tracks, because the majority of Explorer players or Pioneer players don't care for best of 1. They want to play traditional Magic.
Yeah,
and that's fair. Yeah.
So like that doesn't surprise me then of what you were saying. But the rank disparity, I have run into that. Like I am mythic right now, and I have played against like platinum players numerous times. Like, and from my understanding, this happens all in historic and timeless also.
Sure.
But like when I was diamond a couple times, I went up against some bronze players.
Yeah.
Like, but the amount of time to get into that match was still within that 40 to 60 seconds.
Yeah, that like
yeah.
is the perfect, talking about the rank disparity and is like the number one argument on why they need to separate the constructed ranked ladders. More often than not, I see folks who are leveling up on the constructed ladder playing non-standard formats, rushing to Mythic, because they're getting paired against people with different ranks and not playing necessarily against like the meta decks. And then they sit there and then they start brewing in Mythic, in Standard, let's say, if they want to play that. And I'm not calling it unfair. It's not unfair. It's fair. Anybody can do this, right? But
I would say I'm sorry to interrupt you. I would say they're
No, go ahead.
mostly doing it because it is a faster way to climb ladder. Not that like they're not looking to play against lower ranked players. It's just the games are much faster because it is not standard. It's not as grindy of a format.
No. I definitely agree. I'm just, I don't know. I kind of just wish they would separate the ladders so like that can't be like abused,
I agree with you. I think that's like one of the number one like asks like for the longest time. I think mostly from probably I feel like the best of 3 players care much more than the best of 1 players about this kind of stuff. That's just a personal opinion of mine, and I could be wrong. There could be a lot of people that in best 1 that care as much, but I feel like I don't know. I feel like the best of 3 players are the ones that are more vocal about this kind of stuff, and on Arena, the majority of the community is best of 1 players, so you don't hear that much from us best of 3 players. It feels like.
Yeah. And then you got us, you got us daywalkers over here just playing both. Like, it's some decks are better in best of 1 than others. I don't know what to tell you. Separating the ladders would be interesting because right now, we have constructed and limited, and the fact that somebody playing best of 1 alchemy is on the same ladder as somebody playing best of 3 timeless is wild to me. Because, I mean, those are the fact that they're ostensibly the same game is kind of wild because they play so differently. So there is that. But if they were to split out the ladders, how would they do that? At the end of the month, would you get rewards for every single one, or would you just get rewards for whichever one you were the highest in?
Probably the highest.
Probably the highest, like knowing how games are ran. I think it'd be more fair to do like for each one.
But that way you're not being, because otherwise, I mean, if I felt an obligation to play at least 1 game or try to rank up across 4 different ladders, or 5 depending on how they split them out, because you have best of 1, best of 3, timeless, explorer, historic, alchemy, and standard. Assuming we don't add brawl into the mix too, because I mean we're talking. Like brawl would be 6 separate constructed formats that are available.
I personally hope they never add a brawl ranked queue. I do not see the reason for it at all. I understand players want it; those brawl players want it, but how does that make sense? I would like somebody to explain to me how that would make sense logically, not just I just want it. I feel like majority of the time, whenever I ask it in my chat to like explain something to me, like explain it to me so it makes sense, and it just they try to make it make sense, but ultimately it's just like a very convoluted way to say I just want it.
Well, and we're talking about a game, so I mean, honestly, I think it'd be fun. I want it is fair, like
I agree.
But is there anything more than that? Like how many people want it? Like what and. Because all of a sudden, if they have a rank system associated with brawl, is there going to be, an arena championship tied to brawl? Is there like a path to the pro tour tied to brawl?
Please no. Just
Like,
no.
yeah. See that? Like the
No.
moment you would kind of extrapolate that and go further down, it's like, where does this end? You know, if we give the mouse a cookie here, where are we going? So
As soon
you
as
know,
that happens, you're gonna get the commander play. No offense to commander players, you're gonna get commander players coming out going like, "Well, when are we gonna get our pro tour?"
well, and
I
like, CEDH is a thing, and people are having great fun with it,
yeah.
and that's fantastic. But those being separate, kind of unofficial events and scenes and leagues that people are running, sweet. You guys keep doing your thing. That's awesome. But like that being its own separate thing, because the commander format was originally designed to be the palate cleanser after competitive Magic, and it was originally intended to be a casual environment, as the majority of commander players, myself included, um you know still play it. It's still meant to be a casual, just for fun, for environment first and foremost. And I feel like Brawl, as Arena's commander, is trying to kind of carry that same feeling, and I think that's valid and important. And having a play mode where people can pull goofy combos that are running 6 mana do nothing enchantments and stuff. I like that. That's somewhere on the client. Us jank enthusiasts have a place where we can kind of experiment and get goofy with these suboptimal cards. I think that's great. I think that does it belongs. And but the reward should be the experience of doing the thing and playing the game. Tying tying some kind of competitive incentive to it. I think is kind of, I don't know. It I don't love that idea either. So yeah, it sounds like we're on the same page there. I don't. Yeah. But to get back to the notion of splitting out the queues, assuming that we just take the 5 60 card constructed formats that we have on the client right now, we're at a point where we have 5 60 card constructed formats on Arena.
So I was thinking about it before, and realistically, we might not have enough players. Maybe, right? If you try to split them all into their own. So if you try doing like the way I'm thinking of it, if you're going to try to do a queue for each format and way to play the format, that's going to be a queue for best of 1 and best of 3 for standard, best of 1, best of 3 for explorer, best of 1, best of 3 for alchemy, and so on. There might not be enough players playing each individual format or on Arena overall. But there are a lot of players on Arena. There is, but it's mostly a casual environment.
Yeah.
So like, I don't know. Like, maybe more people would care if that would have happened, but I don't know. Like, that was just a thought I had.
Yeah. Well,
I would like for them to do something like that.
I mean, hopefully we just get more players onto the client and can support everything and everybody's happy. That's the dream. But
yeah,
in lieu of that, can we, is there, I don't know that we're at a tipping point or anything yet, but it does, I don't know, it makes me wonder, because you're right, the number of players being split across as many queues, that's something that you see in matchmaking video games all over the place. The moment you have an unranked queue and a ranked queue, and the more queues you manage, the more people you need, and so that balance, as I understand it, is very difficult, and Arena is quietly doing it a ton right now.
So
yeah,
I want to add something on to this topic. If you notice in a past state of the game post or article about Arena, it was mentioned about doing a community focused thing of like that they're going to look into that. I don't know if it's 2025 or if it's on like a roadmap after a certain thing, but it was mentioned of looking into a leaderboard.
Oh, so, yes, I remember this.
So if they do look into making a leaderboard, right now we would all probably assume it's just going to be a leaderboard of like players and mythic numbers, probably.
Sure.
Which that's nice, but like having a leaderboard for like I would hope that if they're going to make a leaderboard, they are going to consider the things that we're talking about of like separating queues, making at least, if you're not going to give us a best 1, best 3 queue for each individual format, just separate the queues, like once again to mythic numbers for each format.
Yeah.
Like give each one a top 1200 mythic rank.
I also think, on the topic of getting more people to just be on the client playing Arena, I definitely think that's on their scope of what they're doing now. If you take a look at the effort that they have put into making Foundations popular, getting people to come back to the LGS, you know, people wanted GP, so they gave you Spotlight Series over this next year, and they only teased a few of them, and then Star City all of a sudden came out with an announcement. Well, here's Spotlight Series at least for the next 6 months. Since they have the US contracts to do it. And I think the big one that's in Europe is actually a modern Spotlight series that's in the Netherlands. So they're putting the effort in there and getting people to come back to play Paper Magic. And the reason I mention this is because, starting with Aether Drift, they're changing the way that they give people like those promo codes in the pre-release kits. Before, you used to get like one of these little codes and they would have like 6 packs on them and you can redeem some number of them per account. For some reason they kept tossing them back and forth between 1 and 5 and yada yada yada, which is really annoying. But now it's no longer tied to a pre-release kit. Now when you sign up for a pre-release at your LGS starting with Aether Drift, they will send to your email associated with your Wizards account, which is tied to your Arena account and your companion app. That's how they're going to send you the codes. So if you want the in-game rewards for Arena, you get them automatically to your email now.
I thought they were auto-apply them to your account, not email.
Yeah, they give them to your in-game mail. So as long as your 2 accounts are connected, which they should, and it's fairly easy to connect them, you could go in your mailbox in the Arena app or on your PC and then just claim the code, in addition to the 3 packs that they give you at the start of every new set. So hopefully that brings more people to Arena, since you're all going to get that in your in-game mail. And, if we're doing all this promotion of Standard, amongst other things, on Arena, then hopefully that brings people to Arena to keep testing Standard. So, they're linking the two together. So hopefully that brings new people to Arena. I can tell you, just from the last like 2 weeks worth of streams, just so many new people coming in. Hi, I just started Magic a month ago. I have a question. Can you answer this?
Yes,
like there's
been
an overabundance of this over the last 2 weeks, which is great. Because then that means we can use our platforms as teachable platforms, right?
Absolutely.
Get the people to learn how to play Magic or answer just the simple questions that they might have. Because the reality is, Foundations was pretty basic, and it's going to be here for 5 years. And we're going to have Aether Drift coming in February. Comes out on Valentine's Day, February 14th. And it's going to introduce vehicles to the mix. And maybe some of those new players who played Foundations have no idea how vehicles will operate. That's going to be something that's brand new for them. So you can imagine the amount of questions that they're going to have concerning some of those cards.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just saying that the vehicles are unique in the fact that they have power and toughness, but are not creatures. On the stack in the library or on the battlefield. So yeah, little things like that, those nuances that we kind of take for granted as being veterans of the game. Yeah, now is a great time to help boost those signals. Yeah, I'm sorry, Jaffer.
I was just gonna say that I hope I would like to see more players. Definitely like to see more players come in and play the game. That'd be great. And like it has been like so far with Standard, but like to the point of like the code things, like that if we're just gonna hope that pulls more players into stores to play Paper Magic. I'm gonna be upfront, as a seasoned player in Magic the Gathering, that's not gonna attract me to go play. I haven't gone to a single pre-release in the past 5 sets. To be honest.
Okay. Which is interesting, because actually going to pre-releases wasn't part of my routine, but I have gone the last few sets, and
they're fun to go to if you're going to friends and everything. Like I just like, I don't know, like I've always gone and would just go to hang out with friends, but like for me it's a little different. Like I have moved about 40-50 minutes away from my LGS, and there is one that is closer that's about 30 minutes away I could go to do pre-releases, but the fact that I don't have close friends that don't go to that store make me not really want to go. But at the same time, like I'm a constructed player. I never really cared too much to go to pre-release in the first place to play sealed. Like to me, it was just more like it was more of the social experience, I guess.
That's fair. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that's funny because as a deck builder, every time I play sealed, I find myself thinking, this is great. I need to do this more. Like, this is the kind of gameplay experience I want. And then the moment I go home, I load up Arena and log back into Standard. You know, like, it's just, you know, it's.
Listen, remember
yeah.
we were in Vegas and we were doing the drafts in the Magic Online room?
Dude, that was so good.
We did a team draft. It was me, Ham, and Headology versus Melissa DeTora and Beth Queen of Cardboard and Torben, who runs the Magic Online program. And not only we're shaking our boots, right? Because we're playing against Melissa DeTora and Beth Queen of Cardboard and Torben, and so we know that they all are like higher skill level. And so here's us drafting, and I'm getting like this crazy blue-green deck. We're drafting Duskmourn, right? And and afterwards we draft, and we get together in our little pod, and Ham lays out the cards, and it's like, Headology, help! Please, limited expert, I need your assistance. Look to see how I built my deck.
Yeah, and here I'm like, right?
And I'm looking up and I'm like, this is insane, right? Because imagine, I had Melissa DeTora passing to me in the draft twice. So I know either my deck's going to be garbage or I have to know to pick up on the signal what's being like passed to me. But the fact that, you know, we don't play limited often, Ham and I, outside of like pre-releases and the occasional draft on Arena. And so we're looking to our limited expert and we're like, okay, team captain, help us, please.
You're, what are we doing? And sure enough, I mean, I remember, and she just looked over at my pool and was like, okay, this is good, drop this, put this over here, and the land should be a 6-7 split. Anyway, Carlo, what you got? It was like, oh, sweet, thank you. Yeah. It was great. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, it was fantastic.
And we won the team draft.
We did.
We won the team draft.
This Las Vegas had a ton of amazing highlights. I played so much Commander, it was ridiculous. I didn't win a single game of Commander all weekend, but vibes were immaculate. Some crazy moments happened, and I got to play games with amazing people. It was a win, no complaints. I did go up in that team draft, first round against Melissa DeTora. Went to 3 rounds, and I managed to eke out a win with an Azorius, with a kind of a lackluster like Azorius deck. And it turns out Trapped in the Screen is pretty good, you guys. That put some work in, and so I ended up and actually was able to take her out in a match. She made me earn it. Let me tell you what, her reputation is well earned. Holy cow. Oh, yeah. And she was super gracious. It was a phenomenal match. I had an absolutely amazing time. And so I got that one win. That's all. That was the only win I needed. I could lose everything else. That experience. Honestly, that experience was going to be a win anyway. But yeah, it was wonderful. Yeah. Anyway, 10 out of 10. If you ever get to draft in a pod with Melissa DeTora, do it. She's great.
Yeah.
All right. That was a bit of a sidebar, but I was excited. So thank you for giving me an opportunity to gush on that. But yeah, so the pre-releases, trying to get people out to the pre-release. Are these codes going to move the needle? You know,
no,
not necessarily.
I don't think it's the codes that necessarily move it. But the fact that, you know, the newer players, if the idea is to attract newer players to come to pre-releases and you give them these codes, you not only get them engaged in paper, but on Arena at the same time, which is something that didn't necessarily exist before. There was always quite the disparity. Like, and I'm telling you about somebody who would take advantage of these codes, right? Because, like, I give them away all the time on the stream, and I would show up, and I would have half the room hand me the codes because they don't play Arena. But now we've got
the number of DMs that I would get back in the day where it's like, if you want to hand these out, go for it. Like, really? And I didn't. I had more pre-release codes than I know what to do with, and that has not continued because you know, apparently more people have picked up Arena. Yeah.
I'm with Carlo, like that. I would do that too whenever I would go to an LGS or and like even like the past couple pre-releases, I would get so many DMs from friends like, hey, here's my codes, because at my LGSs I go to, about like probably like 98% of the player base don't play Arena. They're all Commander players, and like they just don't have they don't even have a smidge of interest in constructed play at all. So
now I can tell you, so just like to piggyback off of that, and I think we talked about this on a previous episode too. and this has to be indicative of where you are, right? At least in the US, right? Your availability to LGS and how many LGSs. Like, I live in the Northeast, right? I'm here in New Jersey. We got like 3 LGSs within like reasonable driving distance from me. And then an hour out, there are so many more, right? There are just plentiful RCQs here every season, so on and so forth. And, starting with the last couple pre-releases, not with Foundations, maybe Bloomborough, I think I really started to see this. One, we've been able to convert Commander players into Standard players, which has been incredible. I've never seen anything like this in my life. But these Commander players have been coming to pre-releases. So they're legit now, they're invested because they've started buying pre-release products, so they get new cards. And they figured out that the sets aren't necessarily made for Commander anymore, because they haven't been for at least since Bloomborough, I would say, right? Bloomborough had Commander products, so did Duskmourn. Foundations did not. And so I also find that a lot of Commander players bought Foundations products to be that jumpstart in the Standard. And since Bloomborough, our pre-releases have been selling out, at least at my LGS I've been out. Like, always capping Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And that didn't used to happen before. So something's changed, which is great. But you still have some of those players who aren't interacted with Arena. So they might be Commander players that have started to switch over to play Standard or a different constructed format, just so they have something to do, or because they're interested in getting involved in the format. But no direct correlation to then get that player onto Arena. And yeah, they could play Magic Online. You can play Commander on Magic Online. Right now, in fact, I think Magic Online's doing like the All Access Pass through like January or something. So you could purchase the All Access Pass and play Commander with your friends on Magic Online. Arena doesn't have it. There's no equivalent to that. So if they are primarily that Commander player, Brawl isn't necessarily scratching that itch for that person, right? Most of what Commander is about, and Ham, you probably agree, right? Like, half the thing about playing Commander games is the social aspect of playing Commander. Because unless you're showing up to play a CDH tournament, you're probably sitting there for at least an hour during your game. And with the understanding that somebody eventually is going to cast a board wipe into another board wipe into an extra turn spell and keep going. And take 20-minute turn and the game's ended. And you're like, okay, next game. There's no equivalent to that on Arena at all.
Not really.
So, yeah.
Well, if they wanted to get that onto Arena, the people talk about like, the card pool would be a pain to code. And yes, if they wanted to get the experience though, which this would also be a pain to code, but 4-player Brawl would capture the vibe of Commander quite nicely and be a reasonable, a reasonable alternative. Anyway, I'm sorry, Jaffer. What were you going to say?
Oh, you're fine. I just want to loop back to Carlos saying of how he's noticing a lot of players in his area are getting into Standard, and Commander players are. Yeah. From my last pre-releases I've gone to, and experience going to my home LGS, like even for going to just stopping there on a random day just to buy some product or something, and it was like a weekend day and there's new players coming in. The experience is the opposite, sort of, in my home LGS. It's new players come in and they're like, "Oh, I want to get into Magic. I heard there's this Arena game and stuff like that, and I want to try learning and maybe play someone there." And the player base at my LGS deter them away from Standard. Like, "Oh, you don't want to play that. You want to play Commander." Like, "Oh, what's that?"
Wow.
And then they explain about it, and they're like, "Oh, okay." And they try it, and they go try Standard. Like, yeah, no, Commander's better. And like, every LGS is going to be different, but like,
every LGS and everybody's experience with the game is going to be different.
Yes.
Right? You're not going to have like a primary Commander community at an LGS encourage somebody to get into a non-Commander format, especially when they're trying to like grow that. And listen, Commander is great. We all play Commander, but it's not a great way to teach Magic.
It's really
not. It's because the gameplay is too complicated for somebody trying to get into Magic.
I had my first Commander game within last night actually. That was the first time within like the past like 6-7 months, and it was only to hang out with friends that I haven't hung out with in that long. I honestly did not care about the game. I just wanted to hang out with them.
Right.
I still
That's
wanted
what
to win
Commander's
though.
for.
But
Well, of course, you're gonna try your best, but like that's what Commander is for, you know. And I love being in Commander pods. It's funny actually, Jaffer. Come to think of it, I have a really fond memory. I think it was from, was it Chicago?
MagicCon Chicago last year.
Yeah.
This year.
Yeah, that was this year. This year, Chicago. The three of us actually played a game where I believe A Veil of Summer made a really notable appearance. And I remember you were playing Vivictus. Vivictus as Madi, and which is funny because you know this card is not particularly amazing. It's a 6-drop dragon that basically chaos warps stuff each turn from on everybody's board, and so not an optimal card per se, like not a super competitive card, but you were playing a solid Jund deck with it, and I was playing my Gigantha Door to Nothingness deck, and you kept hitting my lands with it, and I had a great time with that, and because I didn't give you anything else to target meaningfully, and it was the right thing to do. You know, it was one of those things where you were playing a goofy deck, but you were playing it optimally to win. You know, and if I had my druthers in that game, I would have ramped into a Door to Nothingness and like point and click removed you from the game. So you were completely correct to restrict my resources in a way that you could. And there was something about that where it wasn't rude. You were just doing the optimal play. And I'm so used to playing against Commander players who feel the need to like pull their punches to try to be nice. And you were being nice by respecting my board state, respecting me as a player, and playing optimally to win. And that attitude and that vibe at that table, I got schooled. I wasn't able to cast anything that game, but the deck I was doing, or the deck that I played, didn't have the tools in that matchup. So be it. I had a bad matchup.
Yeah.
It was one of the most fun games I had that weekend, and that's saying something because I had some great games.
And they even tried to kick us out because we were saying that
that's right. They did.
Too long. Imagine that.
Yeah.
No, we had last call at MagicCon. Yeah. Anyway,
it drives me nuts when I sit down if I'm asked to play a Commander. First of all, I do want to clarify: if you ever see me at a convention and you ask me to play a game of Commander with you, I am probably going to talk my way out of it the best way I can, unless if I am roped into it somehow.
We'll rope him.
Yeah,
I do not enjoy playing Commander that much anymore at all. I just the enjoyment has been drained out of me because the state of my LGS playgroup was a couple years ago.
That's a shame.
But it drives me nuts when I sit down with new players in Commander, like new players to me, not new players into the game, and they get so offended over the optimal plays to do to advance the game. It drives me nuts. Like that's part of one of the reasons why I don't enjoy Commander.
Wait till you play with the play group that gets mad when you roll a die to determine a random person to attack.
I'll do that. I don't care if there's if you're all open as turn 1 and I don't know who to attack. Sure,
right?
Okay,
yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, that's the stupidest thing too. I'm just gonna rant a little bit.
But please go off, King. What'd you get?
I have a turn. Just example, Commander, turn 1. I have a 1/1 haste. Everybody's open. I attack one person. Then it's their life mission to get me out of the game because I attack them first.
Now. Yes.
Like why? That makes no sense. It's a game. I'm advancing the game state to try to win the game. Why are you getting upset over that?
And the funny thing is, I get upset if somebody's like, okay, like they're starting out and they're like Mountain Raging Goblin pass. You know, it's like the reason that card is in there is so that you attack with it. That's the whole reason. Why did you not attack with it?
This is why I play Commander decks that don't care about attacking, so I don't have to run into this problem.
Well, but I played against Goblin players that just play Goblins with haste, don't attack, and they just play Kranko, and they just keep making Goblins every turn. And I'm just like sitting there like, what the hell are you? Sorry, what the heck are you doing?
No, you're fine.
Like,
man. You're fine. Yeah,
you're not playing the deck how you built it to be played.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Well, and so I'm gonna do my best to tie all this up, but I have some thoughts that I'm sure I'm gonna add too. But it's funny because I've had moments where I thought I didn't like Commander, and it turns out I just didn't like the play group that I was currently playing with. And the moment you switch the scene up, the moment you start playing with different folks, and the moment it has, by the way, the other thing, the most important thing, it has nothing to do with the cards. Like a lot of people talk about the power level of the cards. I have gotten like Fall of the Thran locked out on a game where I felt more welcome and I was having more fun than going up against players running just fair green stompy. You know, it's the attitude of the players who are going to the table that matters the most, bar none. And I'm a firm believer that Commander is a beautiful format and everybody should participate with it with people with a similar mindset as them. And it's not necessarily that there are good playgroups and bad playgroups, although I suppose there are, but in reality, we all need to find people on the same wavelength as us. If you're going to play optimal and competitive, find other people who are going to play optimal competitive and you're all going to have a good day. Like that's great. If you're going to play like super weird and janky, like the way that I like to do it is I like to build bad decks and play them as well as I possibly can. That's what I like to do. And I try to find other people who do the same thing. And those pods are great fun, and part of the reason why I actually have a weekly Commander show right now called Generic Commander plug. It's me, Uncle Russ, Jarvis Moonbeam, and Jolly St. Click, just a bunch of four goofy brewers who just always have had fun playing together. We're like, can we just play each week? I honestly don't even need to plug it, because in reality, like, yeah, do we want the show to grow? Of course, but the reality is I just want to play with those dudes once a week. Like whether the show grows or not, we're gonna keep it going because we're having a blast. And find that play group. Like whoever that is for you, and you're going to enjoy Commander. That said, new players getting into Magic, understanding the fundamentals of the game, doing it in a 4-player environment where most of the cards that have ever been printed are legal. Like, don't give a brand new player a deck where they might go up against Banding or Infect or Mutate. Like people like me, don't give them Mutate. Yeah. It's not fair. It's not okay. They need to understand the basics, fundamentals. Because I think part of the reason that you see people who, I remember playing the green decks back in the day and not attacking because I would lose my Grizzly Bear or whatever. I would lose a creature on the attack. Well, I would get in for 4 or 5 damage, and if I didn't get in for that 4 or 5 damage, my chances of winning all of a sudden decrease. And so like the right thing to do is just attack and lose the creature, and when you're playing aggro, you need to learn that, where it's like, don't get too attached to these creatures. The goal is damage. You got to go. And that's a lesson that newer players have to learn. Well, if those players never learned that in a one-on-one environment, either playing 40 card jumpstart or 60 card standard or whatever, if they didn't learn that lesson, then they end up with the Krenko decks with 30 goblins online and they're not turning them sideways anywhere. And, and you end up in that kind of environment. It's like, oh, but I'd lose one. It's like, yeah, but you would also remove half my health. Like, why are you not swinging? It's just, understanding the basic fundamentals of the game. You learn those in 1v1, like the environments where things are simple, they're straightforward, and, you can learn the basics and dial those skills in. The other thing that I find with Commander is people who have worked on those skills, the people who have done genuine grinding in standard or modern or whatever, their sequencing in the early turns are better. They value card draw and ramp appropriately, and they build their deck with a good curve. Like a Commander deck with a good curve, that matters. That matters a lot. And I think
you can't just play infinite 12 drops in your deck anymore.
I would if I could. Like, and part of the reason I play Reanimator is because it allows me to put like 10 9-drops in my deck, and it can still kind of work. But you got to be mindful of those kinds of things. And if you're building your decks and you don't have those fundamentals, then your Commander decks aren't going to function. And as a result, maybe that's where some of those bad feelings come from. It's like, well, I'm always losing. It's like, well, there are a lot of skills involved with deck building and how you play it as you're approaching a table. And I'm not saying that people need to devote hundreds of hours into mastering all of these skills in order to have fun with their friends. But putting in a little bit of time and effort in the one-on-one environment will result in those being a little smoother and more effortless in Commander, and you'll probably have more fun.
Yeah, and what strategies and synergies that you like, right? And that's the other thing about most Commander players is I've never met a Commander player who only has one deck. Right?
Oh, goodness, no.
Right? Because you end up seeing and encountering some type of... with Jaffer being an exception.
Okay.
Sorry. But, most folks like a certain synergy they see, and they're like, oh, wait a minute, can I do something like this, but with X Commander? And then you end up building more decks, and then it gets more difficult for you because you now do I want to play this deck all the time, or do I want to play my original deck? Or wait a minute, hold on. I saw Thassa's Oracle in this deck, and now I want to build. Just kidding. Don't do that, y'all.
It's always Thassa's Oracle. Yeah.
It's always Thassa's. I always die to Thassa's Oracle. But yeah, so lots of cool synergies that folks just want to keep building decks with, and it's cool.
Yeah.
I have a thought or comment I want to make.
Yeah.
I know a lot of the Commander players that just play it for the social aspect like it because it's like a board game.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's fine. But like I lost my train of thought a little bit.
Yeah, people do like it
totally,
because it's a board game. Yeah.
Yeah, that's totally fine that people like it because of that. But like at the same time, like if I'm going to like it's I don't know. I'll come back to it. I had the whole thought in my mind and then just went out.
No worries.
As soon as I got a chance to talk, it just
listen. It's been a busy day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Anyway, it's funny because when it comes to Commander, I know that we all have thoughts about it, and I do find it funny that and Jaffer, I find it interesting that you talk about not being interested in Commander, not wanting to play Commander generally, yet you still have a deck because as a Magic player, you kind of have to at this point. Like if you want to go to a convention or you want to go to an event and make sure that you get a game in, it's like, well, it might be Commander, because that's what you got.
I took apart the Vivictus deck.
No, go back.
That deck was fun, but
sold like all the expensive pieces. To be honest,
fair enough. All right.
I'm a fan of Doctor Who, so I sold my Doctor Who pre-con.
Oh, there you go.
Okay, rock on.
But I'm sorry. What were you saying, Ham?
I'm
rambling about
my thoughts.
Something I didn't.
Honestly, fun fact, guys, we were not planning necessarily to talk about Commander as we got into this chat today, but
Jaffer
we kind of
wanted to talk about it.
Yeah, of course. Jaffer always talking about Commander. I know it's.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Totally. If you want to hear me talk more about my Commander content, you can go to twitch.tv/Jaffer and ask about what is the Commander metagame, but in the 60 card version that is called Pioneer.
Or the 80 card version if you get to play a companion. Ayo.
Hey. I love 80 card formats. It's the best. Also, by the way, Carlo, you said something earlier. You made a comment about you get to play more cards because you're playing Yorion as your companion.
It's true.
I want to point out, when you're playing Magic the Gathering, there is no rule that says the deck has to be only 60 cards.
True.
There isn't.
It is
and
true.
So,
in fact, I took a picture or a screenshot of the deck I submitted to play in Jaffer's event today.
Yeah.
And I posted it in my Discord, and I said, "This is the bullshittery that I am doing today." And the first question somebody asked in the Discord, what format lets you play 80 cards?
I saw that.
I can't even.
I saw that.
Most of them, actually. Yeah. If you want to put a whole lot of basics, you can do that in draft. Nobody's going to stop you. Yeah.
I'm like, this is great. Got him already to start the day.
Well, and that's actually the design. So Yorion Sky Nomad, if you're not familiar, it's one of the companions, and it says your deck has to have at least 20 cards more than the minimum number in any deck. And so as a result, it makes 60 card formats 80 cards. Or if you draft this and get in a sealed pool and you want to run it, you have to run a 60 card deck in limited, which is bonkers. In limited,
you're running all your cards, then I think, right?
Basically, yes. You have to play the majority of your pool. Yeah. And so in sealed, it's like very silly to try to do that unless your fixing is like legendary. But yeah, in draft, you could kind of get away with it if you're really focused on your colors. Yeah.
Listen, I will tell you, when I was at PAX Unplugged a couple weeks ago, I got to do a cube draft with Alan from Mental Misplay. It was his cube.
Oh, nice.
And we got to draft with Gavin Verhey and the Nitpicking Nerds and a bunch of other people, right? So awesome. There are a bunch of conspiracies in Mental Misplay's cube. And I got to play the conspiracy that said your lands tap for any color of mana, but you have to play all the cards you drafted. So immediately here's me playing, I don't know, my deck was like 63 cards or something like this. But my land's tapped for anything, and I drafted literally Planeswalkers. And we added another fun thing to the cube draft where you got to open a Foundations booster pack, pick one card out of it, and then that card gets added to your deck. And don't you know, I opened Doubling Season, and I'm like, let's go. And here I am playing every single card I own from this draft. So even in Limited, you don't have to play 40 cards.
That's amazing. Yeah, and that conspiracy apparently is World Knit, which if you're not familiar with conspiracies, they were a part of, well, Conspiracy, which was like a supplemental product, and they have their own rules. And so you start the game with it face up in the command zone. And so it's one of those where if you get it in your pool, you can just put this in your command zone at the start of the game. As long as every card in your card pool started the game in your library or in the command zone, lands you control have tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool.
I can play all my cards.
Yeah, Chromatic Lantern from Jump. That seems amazing.
And you can't even remove it because it's in the command zone.
Yeah, what can you...
It's like, this is great.
Yeah, Chromatic or a Chromatic Lantern emblem. Yeah, yes, please. That sounds great. Yeah, that rules.
Have a thought that kind of ties Commander into the other topics we were going to talk about. Do we have enough time?
Yes, please.
To talk about another topic?
Honestly, we're already an hour in, but this podcast, if we want to fill 2 hours, we let it go. So if you want to keep going, I don't have anywhere to be. Yeah. Carlo, I don't know. Yeah.
I'm here.
So
all right.
So before we started the podcast, one of the topics we're talking about is being Magic the Gathering content creators, and like sponsorships and stuff. And I'm tying Commander into this because as a non-Commander content creator, it feels harder to get sponsors, like, because the majority of viewership for big companies care about Commander only nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
What do you guys think about that?
You know, I think it depends on where they're looking for content, right? Like, because I think if they're looking at the biggest names and the people with the most celebrity status within Magic, a lot of them right now are making the Commander content. And I think Commander probably has the widest reach as far as content goes because it's focused on kind of this party vibe that like lends itself to watchable content that has kind of a mass broad appeal. So if at the end of the day, a sponsor wants to find, they want to make sure that if they're supporting a channel, it has a chance to hit 10,000, 20,000, 100,000 people, whatever that number is for whatever dollar amount they're putting behind it. Honestly, Commander does feel like a safe bet from a business perspective, which is, I don't know, it's kind of a bummer that that's the reality that we live in as, folks because I know the majority of my content is standard, and that has a dedicated audience. I'm seeing a ton of repeat folks and a ton of dedicated viewers, and a lot of those folks are probably listening to this podcast right now. And I just want to let you know, we see you. Thank you. You're beautiful. We love you.
Love you.
Absolutely. 100%. So, but like for real, like cannot stress that enough. But at the end of the day, the numbers and the actual reach, and that's something that I find funny too, because as a streamer, I know kind of where my numbers are, and honestly, my follower count isn't amazing. Meanwhile, like when I post a video on TikTok or a short on YouTube, that can hit. Like honestly, the fact that like my most recent YouTube short only has 1,000 views on it that I posted yesterday, like that's a relative failure. If I have 1,000 views, like 1,000 unique viewers on one of my streams, holy crap, that was a great day, And so, as far as an advertiser is concerned, I get it, like I can understand why they want to hit the stuff that's going to be seen by more people, even if a lot of them are window shopping and just passing through, And that's Commander. Yeah. Commander can appeal to those folks.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I have a couple like different thoughts to this. As someone who's I'm the newest content creator out of the three of us that are here, because y'all have been in the game for a while.
Of all of us though by a lot. But anyway, yes. So yeah.
I don't know. I guess maybe that's true, but it's so interesting because I got into it to do standard. I never got into this to do Commander. I play Commander. I've played Commander for a while, like a lot of people. But obviously, streaming Arena particularly, right? There's already people who do brawl content, and quite frankly, when I started streaming Arena, there wasn't a whole lot of people really streaming standard content because at the time people didn't care about standard. But when I started streaming, I didn't care. Like I was just getting into it. I got into Magic content creation for fun. I've been playing Magic since 8th edition, right? And so, when I started on Twitch, the goal was, how do we make standard fun? I had really this choice, right? And I'll never forget, there was like one conversation that a friend and I had before I decided, hey, I want to try streaming on Twitch a couple days a week and see how it works. And they always said to me, well, do you want to be competitive or do you want to be like casual, like engaging, like entertainment type? Because I think you have to pick between the two. And I will never forget that I said to him, I don't think you need to pick between the two, but I understand what you say, right? I think there's a certain way that you go about like the competitive content, and there's a certain way you go about like the entertainment content. And so, and I wasn't the first one, and I certainly won't be the last, but a lot of what I was able to do so quickly was engage the community from playing community created decks. And I'm not the best Magic player in the world, but I also love to play everybody's Jank. So the fact that I was able to develop something that let me reach Mythic every season from playing like almost strict viewer brews was great because it was ways that you could engage the community. And it took a while for that. For me in particular, I've had like a couple, I'll say lucky things happen, right? Like one time I got raided by Newmont and Ummi. Another time the Magic channel raided my channel, right? With like no notice. And I was like, what is this? Here I am in my bedroom at the time, because now I'm in this stream room that I've created. I'm in my bedroom at the time just sitting here. What do you mean the Magic channel just like raided me with like thousands of people? Excuse me? It was like right after one of the arena championships. And I'm like, one, how did they find me? But two, like this is random, like really random. Like you're talking about maybe I had like 20 viewers at the time because I had just gotten started. And all of a sudden I got 4,000 people in my chat. And so here's me just not freaking out. But just being able to like introduce people into what you're doing and getting them involved. And, and I stuck with standard. Now, I can't take that standard stuff primarily. Like you can take standard and move it to like YouTube and do like deck tech videos and all of that stuff. But I can't take that to short form content. I don't think it works. I can take like Twitch clips of like my plays that I make and put that on like TikTok, Instagram Reels, YouTube Shorts. But it's kind of like difficult.
I have a comment towards this. So yeah, I like I'm in the same boat as you, like of that. Like I've tried to do content of like like standard and stuff, and it's just for short form, and it's hard to do. Like I think you have to be Jim Davis. Like you have to do what he's doing.
Correct.
But he has the bad benefit of his name.
Yes.
Sure.
And so
so for those that don't know what Jim Davis does for short form content, he tends to do kind of like they're kind of like fun facts about standard or just constructed formats in general. And then like he does some commander stuff here and there. It's more of like I think he's at like some type of command fest, and he just goes up to content creators asking like questions about commander cards. But like I feel like, and the editing style too. Like it feels like you have to do something like that. Like short form content, looking at it from the outside as a content creator of trying to get into it. It looks like you can either be very loose and relaxed about it and have bad editing and it could do super well, or you could put so much time and effort into it and it could do really great, or it will more than likely flop, and it's very frustrating.
Yeah, and I totally get that. That's why instead, sort of bringing it back to the like topic, like commander versus non-commander content. I sort of just related back to the whole reason I got involved in content creation in general, and that was just to have fun. Create the content that I think would be fun, and then hopefully people engage in it. And if they don't, that's totally cool too. Eventually maybe it'll reach somewhere. Sometimes I'll look at like a video that I put out like, I don't know, like 3 days ago, and maybe it has like 150, 200 views. But then 2 weeks later, randomly, it's at like 1,000 views or somewhere. The way that things take off on the different algorithms on the different platforms doesn't make any sense to me at all.
The
But I
YouTube
put it out there.
The YouTube algorithm is an absolute mystery. I remember there was one time when Grinning Ignis got banned in Alchemy, I had posted a historic deck tech like a year and a half before that had the Bergie Ignis combo in it that spiked in viewership randomly out of nowhere. And it's like something about the keyword Grinning Ignis, just like triggered in the algorithm, and all of a sudden people were watching that video, which of course the audio quality was garbage and my lighting was terrible. And I'm like, oh man, why is that the one getting traction right now? But anyway, that's first world content creator problems, I know. But like the what will trigger the algorithm to pop certain videos at certain times is wildly unpredictable. And every now and then an old dud that performed very poorly, in the past might just pick up and get some second life out of nowhere. And so I heard it once referred to that every YouTube video that you post is just a lotto ticket. And you can do things better to increase your chances of getting, of hitting, but at the end of the day, every one of them is a lotto ticket, and you never know which one's gonna pay out, and the best thing you can do is just keep scratching them, which that comparison doesn't necessarily translate to financial advice. I want to make that clear. But yeah, in this case.
And the other thing is, like, I just like yapping about Magic. And
Dude,
so, one of my goals over the last year, because y'all remember the ambassador program from the year before, and I was like, well, how do we get to that level? Like, what do I have to do as a content creator to eventually get picked, like, for that type of a program, right? So the answer for me was just put out content, right? And see if it gets picked up, see if it's something that's enjoyable and whatever. And y'all already know, like, I'm in the ambassador program for Foundations. And that was so, like, fantastic for me, because I was like, I worked towards this the whole, like, last year. There came the opportunity to apply to be, like, in the new program. And I got in. And I've been putting out just about daily ambassador content, because it's all focused on Foundations or Standard. And the plus side is I'm able to, like, actually talk about Standard more, or cards that I think are good, or people should be playing in Standard, or something like this. Or I just might be using some crazy, ridiculous, cringy sound and have Magic cards in my video somewhere, right? Or in my post. And honestly, that has allowed me to expand reach, right? So just by, like, being in the program, using the hashtag, and putting out the content, so much so where somebody's going to see it, and hopefully somebody likes it, to enable me to keep making the content. Like, is it worth it? And the answer is yes. From booster pack opening to whatever. And, we're about to stumble upon a very exciting 2025 where Standard is to the forefront. And, if anybody's thinking about getting into making Standard content, like, now is the time. We got 6 Standard sets coming out in the next year. 3 of them are Magic IPs, 3 of them are Universes Beyond IPs. And that might get very strong opinions on either side, and that's completely fine. But the reality is, they're still all Standard legal. It doesn't matter somebody's opinion on whether or not they like the set or theme or IP or whatever, right? There's still going to be cards that exist in Magic. We're still going to play with them. And if it continues the trajectory that Standard's been going, every set is introducing cards that essentially is like pseudo-rotating the format without a rotation happening. Because there are so many new synergies and strategies coming out. And Standard's going to rotate in the summer again. And then we're going to have a new Standard format with the oldest set in Standard being Wilds of Eldraine. And Foundations is going to be around longer, right? 5 years. So we're never going to lose that. Eventually there's going to be people who come back to see the cards in Foundations, and they're like, oh, wait a minute, this strategy actually works with this a lot better than it did pre-rotation summer 2025 Standard. Because it's good design to keep designing these sets that are effectively around what is Foundations, Um, so, at the end of the day, if I could give anybody advice on like content creation in general, it's just build on yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And build with the content that you enjoy making, because I always said to myself, and I'm the guy here who's like the part-time content creator, right? Because I don't do this as a job. um, but if I ever did this as a job, um, I don't know if I would enjoy it as much, because I kind of like where I'm at with it now. But even for people who do this as a job, like, do the things that make you happy, right? They
Mhm.
always tell you this, like, jobs in general. Do what makes you happy. So I kind of view it through that same lens when making the content. Like, if I enjoy making the content, hopefully somebody will enjoy watching it. And if they don't, that's okay. I still, accomplish something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and that's clutch advice. And as somebody who does feel the pressure every day to perform, and because my income is tied to it,
Mhm.
yeah, I'll tell you right now, the burnout is a real threat.
Yes.
Every day. I've actually, I've literally been live, and having been live for 4 hours that day, and I've had people ask, "Oh, how are you combating burnout?" And like with a straight face, with a little like fake smile on, I've said straight up, "I'm not. I already
Mhm.
am. I'm gone. This is like I'm like this I am burnt out right now. I am going through the motions and I'm trying to make the best of it, but I'm tired, and it's not that I don't want to be there. It's not that I'm not having fun. It's just there is a level of frustration that can happen, and you got to fight through it when it's your job. If it's
Yeah.
not your job, you can say, "You know what, guys, I'm going to call it tonight." And maybe some people will be disappointed that that they're not going to get the entertainment that they were looking forward to, but coming back when you're fresh, the quality of the content you're going to be putting out is just going to be better. And so actually I'm not a big fan of New Year's resolutions in general, but as somebody who's not a big fan of New Year's resolutions, I find myself making them every year anyway. So here we are. And one thing that I know I need to do is just find the fun again more frequently. Um, and as a result, accept that sometimes the numbers are going to go down. And as a result, if I need to go pick up a part-time job waiting tables somewhere to make ends meet, so be it. I will, and that's not the end of the world. Because, it just is what it is. But you're right. If you're not enjoying it as the creator, the quality's going to suffer. It just is.
Yeah.
The other thing that I know that I've struggled with on my non-Twitch stuff, when it comes to Twitch, I've always had a pretty clear angle. Like on my streams, I want to do community stuff. I do community brews as well. I'll be honest, not as well as you do, but I'm trying. And we have a lot of the same crossover. A lot of the same brewers are in both of our chats sharing stuff. And some of those decks that they come up with are great. Like, again,
Yeah.
if any of you guys are out there listening, you're great.
Awesome.
We love you. Keep doing what you're doing. It's a blast to play, for real. And so I do some of that, and I do viewer battles as well, which is also fun. But when I'm not doing those, I'm fixating on trying to find an off-meta deck that can do something interesting that no one has seen before. And I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to do something that no one has seen before 3 days a week, every single week. That is insane. Like that is a standard that I'm not meeting, and there's no way I can. But at the same time, I could deliver the same amount of value to the viewers by just relaxing and playing the fun Reanimator deck that worked last week and just chatting, because it's still an off-meta deck, and I'm learning to play it better. Because ultimately, is the proposition to create a new deck every day, or is the proposition to teach people how to be successful while playing off-meta brews? And I think the goal is to be successful while playing off-meta brews. So spending multiple days on one brew to perfect it, modify the sideboard, get it to, and optimize the lines and the play patterns, because when you're playing a brew, the difference between a brew that is just like dead on arrival and the concept's not going to work versus a brew that's close but you're just missing something important. There's a very different. And sometimes it takes hours and a lot of repetitions to find the missing piece. And if you're not putting in that time, you're not going to get there. So understanding kind of the pitch, what am I trying to put out with this content? On the Twitch channel, play off meta decks and create a place where brewers who still like Arena can hang out and and share ideas and whatnot. That's always been my pitch for my Twitch channel. For my YouTube channel, I've been at it for almost as long as my Twitch channel. I'm still trying to figure it out. Like, I genuinely cannot give you a summary of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say like me being a full-time content creator. I'm not. My content's different focus than both of yours. Carlo and I's content somewhat matches up occasionally. Like I myself, like I'm a best of 3 content creator that focuses on competitive play on Arena. And if anybody that is watching, if you come by my streams, you might have noticed for like I don't know how many weeks, but I'm playing nothing but Golgari mid range pretty much in standard.
And we're upset when you're not.
And like, and I myself right now am facing burnout too at the moment, and it's not because I'm playing the same thing over and over and over again. Of like, even if I go try to play something else within Magic, I'm burnt out with Arena.
Yes.
So like the other day when I was streaming on Thursday, it got to like about 4 hours into my stream, and I'm like, I just can't keep doing this right now. I updated Pokemon TCG Live, and I was playing Pokemon on stream, the card game. And that was a nice refresher to get away from Magic. And it's just nice to do that every now and then. It hurts though to do that. Like your viewership drops
it hurts the numbers,
drastically,
and,
which ends up hurting like your ad revenue, or your sub count or something like that. Like
That's real.
know that for a fact. I took 3 months off of Magic in 2023 and played Pokemon Scarlet Violet. I did get into the competitive scene of that, and my viewership went from like 110-ish all the way down to 15. That hurt a lot.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I've got a couple hours in Untitled Goose Game for that exact same reason. I literally just like I was losing. I was at a point where I almost punched my monitor. I was getting so angry at Arena, and I just had to turn it off. And actually, one of the things that I'm planning this next year is working in. I don't know if it's going to be a regular weekly thing or just in the mornings when I'm feeling it. Maybe once a week or so. Playing non-Magic related games. Like I downloaded Final Fantasy VI, and I plan on replaying the Pixel remaster of Final Fantasy VI. With the justification, well, we have the Final Fantasy set coming out next year, so I'm doing research to familiarize myself so I can get more excited for that set. Yeah, that's totally the excuse. It's totally the reason, you guys. And I fully expect that those days, yeah, my viewership is going to be a third, if not a quarter, of what I normally get. And I up until this time, I've been so fixated on the concurrent viewer number because the path to partner process just has you fixate on that number to an unhealthy degree. So fellow streamers out there is a lot of focus on that concurrent viewer number. And I'm going to say this out loud so that I hear it because I also deal with this. That number is not your value as a streamer or creator. It is not. It's just not. And you need to trying to make that separation and having a healthy relationship with that number is very hard. And that's something that this next year I'm going to accept that my overall viewership is going to take a hit, but when I'm playing Magic, my quality is going to be better. I'm going to be enjoying myself more, and I hope that as a result, those streams, those viewers will increase, and I'll actually be able to retain new people who are enjoying it. Because right now, I fear that a lot of people are seeing me burnt out and frustrated, and as a result, they're not pressing follow and they're not coming back. And it's like, well,
I have a comment on that. I agree with you, but then I disagree at the same time.
Okay.
Because if you're a content creator that is full-time and your revenue is your content, and say like you're a Twitch streamer and the majority of your revenue is from ad revenue, the lower your viewership number, the lower ad revenue you're going to get. So like I agree for mental stability. I totally agree with you on that. But like I don't know. I see it from your side. I agree with you, but then
there's the dollars and cents, like practical aspect of it. You're not wrong. Yeah, that's real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, as somebody who like most recently did the partner push,
Mhm.
because I just got partner in August, right? Um, I was at it and that was something I set on like my 2024 goals, like reach Twitch partner and eventually
Mhm.
get MTG ambassador. They were my two goals for 2024.
Nailed it.
And
Yeah.
and you know, starting in January, I'll never forget. And so those of you who are in the content creation space now listening to this, um, you know, they want you to get that concurrent viewer number over 30 days in order to apply. But what they don't tell you in the same apply screen is that the first email they're going to send you back is going to say, we want 60 days of data, of the
Yep.
same data, which is like
So
kind
why
of
wasn't that
Monka
the requirement?
TOS, in my opinion. That
Yeah.
in itself is Monka TOS. At least be upfront and say, you need
Mhm.
60 days of data. Don't let me apply until I have the 60 days, right?
Yeah.
And you know, I remember we were doing the whole thing. I was promoting. I was streaming like an extra day a week. I think I was doing like 5 days a week, and I was like, whatever I got to do to hit like this number. And what I actually found is, even though I did, you know, the viewer content thing more frequently than not, um, the days I did more competitive stream, where I said I'm going to take this deck and play it the whole stream, where I've never really done that before, actually had higher viewer counts
Hmm.
than the viewer decks. And that was because I was able to bring in more like newer people
Mhm.
into the stream from them watching me testing my deck for an event I'm going to play in, let's say. Um, and that took me, like I said, I got partner in August, so it added up all the data through July. So January to July, I applied every month because I hit the viewer count numbers, that concurrent viewer count, for all of those months in a row.
Mhm.
And fun fact is, they don't have to accept you the first time when you're applying to the
Yep.
program. They don't have to accept you at all. They could just deny you every time, even if you have the data or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
You could have 200 viewers, and they
yeah.
could still deny it. It's totally their
Yes.
discretion. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
It is. It's more than likely they will deny it the first time.
yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
More often than not. Mhm.
I was fortunate to get approved on my first application,
Oh wow.
but I also
Wow.
treat my application like a job application.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like a lot of people do not do that at all. Like
Yeah.
Twitch is a business. They're gonna want to know how are they gonna make money off of you? Like
Mhm.
what's gonna benefit them to make you a partner.
Yeah. And you know, it also depends the content that you're putting out on Twitch. Like
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
we all primarily do standard. Jaffer does a lot more Explorer and Pioneer too. Um, you know, because we're streaming what we like, what we enjoy, right? Um, you know, and to bring it back to the original point, Commander content creation versus other Magic content creation. Um, and listen, I love all of the Commander content creators
Oh,
that we
absolutely.
that
I
we
mean,
engage in. I love when they
yeah.
ask, "Hey, like, can you come on my stream and play for an evening or whatever?" You know, hanging out with those same people at like Magic Cons and stuff. Um, there's just so many people
Amazing.
though that are doing the Commander content streams, and you know, a lot of them are doing it as, you know, a main part of their content. And I always feel like there's just so many people at one time on Twitch making the Commander content. Like,
Yep.
I follow them all. Like, I can see them all, like
Oh
all
yeah.
on my screen. And there's always like 10 or 12 people live, and they all go live at like the same time.
Mhm.
And so it's so hard, in my opinion, to be in that particular space trying to do it on Twitch, where you know they get like tons of views on the content that they create outside of the Twitch space,
Mhm.
right? Like whether that's YouTube Shorts or even long form on
Yeah,
YouTube, you know, those
the
same
social
people.
the social followings that those folks have is massive. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
And it's interesting because you would think that that even too is oversaturated, but they also make like awesome edited content,
Mhm.
right? Whereas when you were trying to like stream Spell Table on Twitch, it's difficult because the screens are so small, and I feel like the majority of folks are going to the streams to engage with the banter, not the actual gameplay of the
Mhm.
of
Mm-hmm.
the games. And there's too many people doing that at the same time. Whereas like when we're on, you know, you can see clearly who the nighttime crew is or the daytime crew is, right? When Hamhawks is on the morning, Hamhawks is on the same time as Crokies and Amy the Amazonian and
Mhm.
sometimes Kenji, right? Numont the Nummy.
Yep.
Um, and each of them have their own community.
Yeah.
And you know that these are the folks who you should be watching during the daytime, right? Whereas Jaffer and I are on evenings, typically the same time, doing the same content. All of our communities, first of all, are like pretty much intermixed, right? You can see the same people who are in Jaffer's channel and my channel, or Hamhawk's channel, so on and so forth. And it's great because we have the content to provide them all night long, right? And then you have folks who do amazing work like Foxy, who primarily does draft, but now is starting some standard thing because of the Spotlight series coming to Atlanta.
Is she actually starting standard content?
Yeah, she just started a couple days ago. She was doing like a collab stream with CGB, trying to get her to play some standard games, which is amazing. Oversaturation of Commander content on Twitch versus like specified format content where you get that throughout the day, right? And I never really see Commander streams during the day. It's only ever in the evening time.
I think because they need guests and most people work, so it is what it is. Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to grow in that space to do it Commander-wise. You can do it, but again, it's all about making the content that you enjoy, right? If you enjoy doing the Commander streams, keep doing them, right? People are watching.
Yeah.
And it's a good time. It's great banter. Being one of the people who've been in some of them streams and Hamhawks, it's just a good time. It's a good feels time to sit there and play the games. It's just difficult to grow the viewership, but it doesn't matter if you are in the game for that, like just creating the content and putting that out there and logging on Twitch and streaming a game of you and your friends are playing. Great, but it's hard to grow that viewership. It will take longer. At least from my experience so far.
I want to give my 2 cents. Like everything Carl was saying, go by that. But if you're wanting to grow as a quality content creator of quality content of like how your stream looks and everything, I personally do not think Commander is the way to go. There is no way you can make your guest have a better camera view of their board. Usually, honestly, in my opinion, Commander streams, the quality of them, of at least the gameplay of trying to see what's going on in the game, it's not good. I understand there's some creators out there that have worked their best to make it better. It's just every time I have stopped in I stop in like a content creator friend stream and it's a spell table commander content. I stay for a couple minutes and I leave because I personally want to follow the game. I don't want to follow the banter. The banter's nice to have in addition to the gameplay, but I want to follow the gameplay. Which that kind of ties into the thing of like Commander's more of a board game again than Magic, but I like that. That's just my 2 cents on that because like when I was in my first year and a half of being a content creator of like Twitch streaming and stuff, I just happened like it was during the pandemic, like when the stay-home order happened here in Wisconsin and more across the whole entire U.S. and like a lot of newer content creators were coming to me of like, hey, I like what you're doing on this and this and this. How do I do that? But for Commander.
Yeah.
And my answer will always be like, I don't know. And then like a couple times, like some people ask me like, how do I make my guest cameras look better? Ask them to get new camera, a new camera, I guess, and better lighting.
Ship them better.
There's nothing that you can do for
lamps
free.
Or something. Yeah.
Like,
no,
that's
you're absolutely right.
2 cents with that's my 2 cents with it. Like that's the majority of the time and the stuff I just said. People don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
And you're not going to grow as a creator like overnight. A lot of people expect that, and they give up on creating content too because it doesn't happen. There's so many people that started during the pandemic that quit Magic content creator or content creating in general that just don't stream or make YouTube content anymore because like they didn't blow up as a creator.
I think at the end of the day, you need to understand what are you trying to get out of it. You know, like
Mhm.
when I dabble with Commander, I don't generally make content about Commander. My Twitch streams are not about Commander. My long form videos on YouTube are not about Commander. I will occasionally touch on Commander when I'm doing card evaluations and share anecdotes from Commander games. Like I'm happy to do that when it's appropriate. But making Commander content with Spell Table, like you're saying, it is difficult to do. Because you have four separate webcams, and when you're doing the live streams, there is no overlay. Like if you're watching an arena channel, if they have the untapped overlay or the cardboard live overlay, whatever they're working with, actually the untapped overlay is especially solid. I know it's the one that I use, and I believe you guys are using it too. I mean, the interface itself is very minimal, and it mirrors the way that arena operates. And so if I'm watching an arena content creator and they have the untapped overlay and there's a card on the board that I want to read, I can hover it and it pops up the exact same way that if I were to be playing arena, and it even looks similar. Like, and I've had a number of newer Magic players on my stream go, "Holy crap, I just hovered that like out of habit and it actually worked." I'm like, yeah, it did, right?
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Great.
And those that is such a critical detail to making the Twitch stream engaging and easy to follow. And you can also hover over the graveyard and see a list of all the cards that are in the graveyards and things like that. And I do like reenact the crime, breach the multiverse, stupid combos all the time. The number of cards I have in my deck and what is in my graveyard is very relevant at all times. And if it wasn't for that overlay, you wouldn't be able to see it. And in a game of Commander, get out of here. There's no way that you can hover. I'm taking up usually 1/5 of the screen over to the side. Like right now, we don't have a good interface to broadcast a game in a way that a user on their own terms can engage, ask questions about the board state, and get them answered. And Arena does have that. And so that's a big deal. And honestly, there was a comment a couple weeks back, which I believe we talked about more in depth in a previous episode, about Chris Cox making an offhanded comment about them looking into developing a Commander client, like a whole digital client. There's a lot of problems with that. However, from a purely blocking and tackling logistics perspective, if that means that we can broadcast Commander gameplay with all the banter that we love with an untapped overlay or the ability to for the viewer to modify whose board they're focusing on or something, like where they can get information about the board state being piped in off a back-end API so that a system can deliver that in some way without it being just whatever information is within this webcam view. Commander content on Twitch would explode. Whether or not that client would be good for the game in general, that's a whole other ball of wax. But as far as Twitch is concerned, it would be 100% win, and it's not even close. Because right now that's what we need. We need some way to get an untapped overlay on. Because until then, the Commander content that's going to be successful are shows like the Command Zone or Commander at Home. These highly produced, highly edited, shuffle up and play. Those shows they have the banter and you can follow the game. But the reason you can follow the game is because they have a staff of editors who put 100 hours into each video. Or, maybe 100 is a little exaggeration. I don't know how much, but many hours of labor go into dialing those in, making sure that all the cards pop up on screen and that it's cut together in a way that is very clear what all the cards do and when they are played. And it makes it so that if you miss something, you can easily just rewind 10 seconds, 30 seconds, and you'll get your answer. And that's what you need to do to make a Commander game palatable, to make it work. And a lot of us creators who are, trying to make it work, and a lot of the Commander community who is streaming on Twitch, Carlo, I want to echo everything you're saying. It's an amazing group of people, and I've been honored to kind of be welcomed into that crew. And so what are you trying to get out of it? When I go to a convention, and I meet some of these folks who I've played against, I'll never forget being in Vegas, not this past time, but the year before. I was in the middle of a game playing, and I said something, and the person who was sitting next to me, because we were on these long, it's these long tables, and we're all shoulder to shoulder with strangers half the time. And the guy next to me turned around and just said, "Were you in a pod? Were you in one of Brew's pods?" And I was like, "What?" and Brouhaha Gaming, the streamer, and I looked, and it was Corey, that TCG guy, and he and I had literally been in a pod like 2 or 3 months prior, and we had literally played a game together. It was like, oh hey, what's up? Good to meet you. Like you just recognized my voice, and just and we were just by happenstance have been sitting next to each other, and anyway, so the little moments like that, it feels like being part of a family, and that's great, and that is value that you get from participating in those. And even if the Twitch numbers are low, that sense of community and that acceptance, that a low viewer count doesn't erode that. It just doesn't.
Right. And to echo sort of what you've said, what you kind of just said was, if you're making the content, and I see this a lot with a lot of newer people, just coming to content creation in general, they expect like an explosion of viewership, or like that their stream is going to do like incredibly well, like right off the bat. And we all three can attest to that's not the case. Right? You're in it for the long run, right? You can't expect like immediate results. I don't think any content creator with any type of game that you are streaming or creating content for, nothing is immediate. It's impossible. So like a lot of folks, even who are starting content creation, whether that's with Commander or Standard or whatever, don't quit after like 3 months or after 6 months or after a year. Like it takes a while, for somebody who, this March, it'll be 3 years for me streaming on Twitch. And really only 2 years since I've gotten into the non-Twitch content creation game, right? Because I didn't do anything but Twitch like for the first year, because I'm tech illiterate, so I don't know how to do 20 different things, right?
That's you fake it well, but okay.
Listen, and we were talking about this before we got on here to the podcast. I literally just got my first stream deck for 3 years almost. I haven't been using one of these things. So just to tell you, because I'm tech illiterate, and even though I could have bought one, I could have used one. We just been going at it without it, right? But don't quit, because like I see too many times on social, whether that's Twitter, Blue Sky, and I just saw a bunch of stuff on Instagram about a bunch of content creators just like saying, hey, in 2025, I'm not going to be doing this anymore. And it's like, that's kind of a bummer to see, because like especially if it's somebody who's just gotten into it, I don't understand it. There's many factors that like come into play, and it's not just as simple as saying someone's starting or somebody's just like giving up on it. Somebody sees your content that you are creating, and if you think that they don't, there's probably somebody watching, right? Like we were all that person who had a few viewers to start. Listen, I went months on end with like 2 or 3 people in my chat when I first started, right? Absolutely. I didn't expect it, but I would have never grown if I didn't keep at it, right? You can't grow without keeping at it, right?
Also,
you can't just expect that immediate gratification.
To add on to Carlos is saying, don't expect also, like, if you're trying out streaming and you don't expect like to get a big giant raid and then to pop off from that. There's a very small percentage of people that can happen to, and it's probably less than 1%. Like, no, I do not think, like, obviously anybody that's watching this, you're in the Magic space. I strongly believe there is not ever going to be a case of Queso or Jinxie. Oh, well, Jinxie's different. Queso in Magic the Gathering. Queso never streamed, and he made 2 TikToks that blew up, and then he started streaming. And he's like in 10 to 50K viewers almost every night. That there, first off, there's not that many viewers for Magic. There's nowhere near that. But no. I don't think anybody is going to be like that within the Magic space. If I'm wrong and somebody out there that happens to you, great for you. I'm happy for you. If
Absolutely.
that happened to you and that you're in the future watching this, but I strongly believe that won't happen. The Jinxie thing, apparently he was streaming for years to like 2 viewers, and then he did something and he popped off from that. But like, never expect anything to just be handed to you. Expecting like to get a big raid and a blow up from that, or expecting to blow up or to grow significantly within a couple of weeks or months. You're effectively basically expecting that, like, the effort to be just handed to you at that point, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
No, not generally. But conversely, The other side of that, so Magic the Gathering does not have the pure volume of viewers that something like, I don't know, a Fortnite or Just Chatting has.
Right.
The category just doesn't. So the
Also,
idea of
the
supporting somebody hitting 10K, I mean, right now I think like the highest viewership that we see are folks like Crokies, who will get like 2 or 3, or Numot, that'll get, or I think Voxy can get these numbers too for sure, where it's a couple thousand, which is crazy impressive, obviously.
Yeah.
But like that's our number one. Those are our tops. You go into Fortnite, and right now as we're recording this, there might be somebody chilling at the top of Fortnite with 100K. Like that might, there's a good chance that's happening. And so, but the flip side of that too is the proportion of creators and viewers in Magic is actually in the time I've been here, I've been at it for about 5 years, fairly healthy, meaning that if you are a consistent streamer, if you appear in the category often, Magic has a dedicated viewership. And if they see you, they will give you a chance. And if you are delivering quality, people will come back. If you're streaming Fortnite or Call of Duty or whatever, there is a high likelihood that no one will see that you are live on any given day. And you will literally just never, the chance of being discovered is just zero. And I know, as somebody who, most days is able to raid out in the middle of the afternoon with 60 to 80 people, and sometimes over 100 people, I always go into the Magic category, and I will look for folks with fewer than 5 viewers whose stream overlay is dialed in. If you got a face cam, maybe a clever joke in the title, and you do not have followers only chat on, those are kind of the things. If I see that you have clearly put in some effort into your overlay, I will raid you. I will throw my audience at you, because if you clearly give a crap and are gonna put the effort in, I'm gonna trust that you're gonna be able to be professional, and maybe you just need a chance to be seen. And it's like, well, I'm gonna give you, knowing the way that raids work on Twitch, I'm going to give you 3 seconds with these, with these 80 folks or whatever, or, 10 seconds, 30 seconds, few minutes, however long it is, before people fall off. Cause that's the other thing. The raid fall off happens to everybody. It just is what it is. Like, don't feel bad if that happens. Like if your viewership just dips again. But honestly, like when I was first getting started, I got hit by a couple of big raids. Like I think I got a 100-person raid pretty early on. I think I got a 500-person raid within my first like 2 or 3 months.
Wow.
And I got, I think, 1 or 2 consistent viewers that actually came back as a result of that.
Yeah.
That was a huge, I got
That's
like
huge.
legit, that was amazing. That was like phenomenal win, because I've seen people who are like, I've raided people who, like, I've kept the lurk on and come back later, and they were upset that they were, like, everybody left, what the hell? And it's like, you're not entitled to this, dude. Like, notice not everybody left. A couple of people are still there. Be grateful that they are still there, And even if it's just people who walked away from their computer and had no idea, or maybe they fell asleep and have no idea the raid happened, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Everything is a gift, and appreciate it and value the people who are there.
I remember like early, like back when like there was the content creator explosion of like all these new creators during COVID, like raiding people, and they would do that what you just said, like, why isn't everybody staying? What the hell, kind of thing. And like I was taking the effort, like explaining to some people of like, well, like it is very late at night and people work day jobs. Everybody's not like us and up this late. And after a while, I just like gave up, because no matter how many times I raided some of these people, they just can't get it through their head. Like people are so they feel like they're so entitled. But I was wanting to mention also, to clarify in all the stuff we're talking about, we are talking about Twitch. For anybody, just to clarify for everybody watching,
Twitch.
We are not talking about YouTube Live or TikTok or Kick. Those are all their own type of thing. Like I've dabbled in multi-streaming to YouTube and TikTok before, and those are completely different in how they work. So if you want advice on that kind of stuff, we probably are not the place to talk to.
I have zero expertise on that, so I can't speak to it. Yep. Yeah. No, but it's interesting. But honestly, bottom line, I'm gonna try to put a little bow on this with kind of my feelings when it comes to this. Streaming on Twitch and creating content in general is just like any other creative pursuit.
Mm-hmm.
Do it because you want to do it. Don't do it in the hopes of getting rich. Every person who sat down to write a book or put out an album or, start painting stuff, the folks who did it to try to make a quick buck never went anywhere in it. The folks who did it and loved doing it kept going.
Yep.
I streamed for I want to say 3 weeks before I got my first chat message. Like that's how few folks. Well, I started going live at 5:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, and I was only doing it for an hour a day. So I was an absolute nobody. I wasn't promoting it anywhere. I had no social media presence, no nothing. I just let's try this Twitch thing. What's it about? And I just logged on, had the gear, and just started playing arena and talking over my plays as I was playing. And the process of narrating the game I found that honestly intoxicating. I loved it. And there's something about Magic that I've always loved. And it gave me an opportunity to have a more, I don't know, this is going to sound weird, but I'm going to say it the weird way, so feel free to clip this out of context and anybody out there. Streaming and narrating over my gameplay allowed me to have a more intimate relationship with Magic the Gathering. I got to understand it on a completely different level, and my skills improved as a direct result because I was able to critique my plays and talk through all of the different opportunities that I had trying to explain myself. And the process of narrating my game as I was doing it was something that was it triggered something in a very positive way, and it was a delightful experience. And it was 3 weeks before I got my very first chat message. Shout out to my buddy Fingon, who still pops in the chat every now and then, was first person to send a message, just sup. And I was like, oh, it's happening. There's somebody here. But anyway, I fell in love with the process of streaming long before that chat message showed up. Within the first week, I knew I want to keep doing this. And whether people are here or not, this is fun. I want to do this. And in that first year, more and more people showed up, and we had a couple of moments. To this day, I have 2 Theros Beyond Death draft decks still saved to my arena account that were from those early days, because they were just like, it was a time when people were invested, and we were just they were some of the first streams where I felt like I was really getting the ball rolling and we were having a great time. And the process, I fell in love with the process, and I would do it if I made $0. The reason that I took the pivot to try to, and I'm continuing to try to make it my full-time job, is so that I don't have to stop doing it.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. So if you try streaming, I've known a lot of people who are very engaged on Twitch, and they feel some kind of pressure that they should try streaming someday. And they'll do it, and then often I don't know, it's just no one was there, so I just felt awkward. It's like, if you felt awkward and you didn't like it, stop. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to. Do it if you try it, like anything else. Just like, trying to learn how to play guitar, go, running regularly, or what, I don't know, just name something like a hobby that anyone can have. Feel free to try it. And if you enjoy it, go do it. If you don't, stop and find something you like. And that's fine. I do it because I love it, first and foremost, and I need to get to a point now where, like in wrestling with burnout, it's frustrating because I'm doing this because I love it and it makes me feel good. And I'm at a point where that the return on that investment is out of balance, and I think that needs to change. I mean, I'm feeling more tired and worn out by doing it. I still love doing it, but there are elements of it that I find very stressful, and I want to fix that. And so I'm going to make some major changes.
Sure.
And if the income hits, so be it, because the reality is that was never the point. If the goal of streaming on Twitch is to make $1 million, go get a part-time job at McDonald's. You'll get there faster.
Yeah.
It is what it is. I crunched the numbers actually, and my actual Twitch payouts based on the and I am a Twitch partner, which I know a lot of people think is like the goal, right, or the end game. I am a Twitch partner, and I do have some outside sponsorships, which is something, but the majority of my income is my Twitch payout. My actual Twitch payout with ad revenue, subs, the whole shebang, for 2024 ended up averaging around $4 an hour. I mean, that's like half minimum wage where I live. So, and according to, Twitch tracker and all that jazz, I'm in the top 0.3% or whatever. Like, I'm a success story and I'm making less than minimum wage. Like,
mine averaged out to minimum wage here in Wisconsin, basically.
Yeah. Right.
But
Isn't it?
to be fair, I
Yeah.
do run a much higher number of ads, probably compared to both of you.
Yeah.
But it's what you got to do. Like and Twitch also has the you can always subscribe to turn them off. And so if you're in a stream regularly and you're sick of the ads, just give them $5.
If Twitch is Twitch is your TV channel, for anybody that's watching, and like you watch Twitch over any streaming service, you are probably better off getting Twitch Turbo. To be honest, like the streamer will still get ad revenue from it. But you just will not get any ads. So say if you're watching, I don't know, 5 to 8 streams a day, you probably should get it. It is, I think it's $13 a month.
You would get a good return and those streamers would get paid. So, yeah. But anyway, and so ads are kind of a necessary evil. They're frustrating, but they are what they are, Yeah, I get it. But yeah, in any event, the dollar amount on Twitch, people talk about the top 1%. It's actually the top 0.001%. And yes, there are millionaires on Twitch, 100%. Those absolutely exist, but they're the exception, not the rule.
To be honest, like all three of us, we're probably in the top 1%. I know I am. I believe Ham is. Carlo, I believe you are too.
I believe so at this point, depending on what metrics you're looking at. But yeah, I mean, it's safe to say at this point, I think. Yeah.
Like I think it's like if you basically are streaming full-time or almost full-time hours, and you have an average that's like above 15 viewers, you are already in the top 1%.
Yeah, the number of people streaming out there is massive. So yeah, the top 1% is actually a lot of people. Yeah,
it is massive, but it is actually a much a lower amount compared to like 2 years ago.
Yeah,
that's true. But yeah, bottom line, do it because you want to do it, and don't. There's so much other advice out there, but do it for as long as it's fun. And if you find success, great, lean in, but at any point, don't be afraid to accept that it's not where you want to be. That's okay. Yeah, I know even if I do end up having to get another job, to help make ends meet, I'm still going to keep streaming. It'll just, the number of hours will change or the way that I handle it will change, but I'm going to keep doing it. I know I'm going to keep doing it.
Yep.
In 10, 15 years when I'm just some guy and nobody gives a crap anymore, I'm still going to be going live on Twitch. Like it's just never going to stop. And then the moment Twitch stops being a thing, whenever that may happen, I'm going to move to the next platform, and then I'm going to start just putting on shows for my cat or something. I don't know. It's never going to stop. Like it's
shows with your cat,
also, yeah. If you have animals, put them in the shot. Get them in the shot.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're all three cat dads, and can confirm it does.
Yeah.
It does
He's
help.
Staring
it's
at
fun.
me after I said that.
Yep.
Oh, hi, buddy.
Yeah. Anyway,
actually, last thing I want to say. I've realized every time I gone to a Magic Con, not any other, not a DreamHack or a SCG Con, I've had at least 1 or 2 people come up to me and ask me about getting into content creation.
Oh yeah,
cool. Yeah, I love that. Most important thing, do it. See if you like it. That's the most basic advice, but it's true. Don't stress your gear. Don't stress any of that jazz. If you don't have a camera, try going without a camera. Prioritize getting a camera at some point.
Or VTuber.
Or VTuber. Yeah. The VTuber angle is also a perfectly fine way to do it. Yeah.
Well, anyway, you do need a camera for the VTuber thing, but you can use your phone.
Yeah.
Also true. Yeah. There's a lot of ways to do it, but don't give yourself a high cost barrier to entry that doesn't exist. Yeah. Yeah. Cool stuff, man. We went all over on this one, but this was a fun discussion. Yeah. I appreciate it. Yeah, we started with Pioneer and Explorer and ended on, man, being a streamer is wild, right? Yeah, and I'm here for it. So, yeah, gentlemen, thank you so much. I definitely appreciate it. We are approaching the 2-hour mark. Or actually, no, we are slightly over the 2-hour mark. So I think we'll take it in for a landing. Before we go, is there anything that you want to let the folks know about? This is going to be coming out just, a few days before Christmas. Merry Christmas and happy holidays for everybody celebrating out there. Absolutely. But yeah, do you guys got anything coming up that you want to let the folks know about? Our Twitch channels. The links will be in the description. Go hit those. But follow, subscribe.
That all that was just said right there. And MagicCon Chicago's coming up in February. You should definitely go, I guess, if you live nearby. We're all three of us are gonna be there.
Sure.
And if you see us and we're free to play Magic, you should definitely play Magic with us.
Mm-hmm.
Just know,
I'll be bringing
like
so
I said earlier,
decks.
if you ask me about Commander, I'm probably gonna run away.
So bring a Pioneer deck and make Jaffer's day. Yeah.
So okay, this is the actual last thing I'm gonna mention.
Yeah.
I'm a little upset. The PTQ, the Pro Tour Qualifier event at MagicCon this year at Chicago, it's not standard, it's limited.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go play the Pioneer Cup then, because I'm not a limited player. And hopefully I'll actually win into the top 8 this time I bring home a big trophy. It's actually a big trophy they actually give you.
Ooh, excellent.
For me, I'm playing in an RCQ tomorrow. So there's
Good luck.
Standard.
Let's
go. I will be going to the Spotlight Series in Atlanta the first weekend of January to play some Standard. So
smuggle me in your briefcase and I'll sleep under your bed.
All right. I will be there. It's going to be a good time. And then MagicCon Chicago, of course, in February. And then March is the Modern RC in Charlotte. Yeah, those are a couple upcoming events.
Excellent. Yeah. And I'm going to be doing the MagicCon as well. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be bringing enough Commander decks to go around. So even if you don't have one, that doesn't mean we can't get a game in.
Yeah.
And it's going to be some goofy combo. Then you're just like, really? Who runs this? I do. Sorry. It just is what it is. But yes. So thank you, gentlemen. This has been a ton of fun. Like I said, links in the description. Go hit those up. And Jaffer, thank you for putting on that tournament earlier today. It was an absolute delight. I got to say.
No problem.
I love any grassroots arena tournaments, man. Oh, I love that they exist. Anybody out there who's interested in, hosting events, just do it.
It's not. Yeah. There's not enough being hosted anymore.
And this community is hungry for it. This community is active. It's engaged. That if you want to make it on, maybe there's a market on Twitch for more tournaments. I'm sure that. Anyway, people want to do it, and folks
wants to play.
And folks like me like to commentate. So if you're doing one, hit me up. Anyway, so yeah, awesome. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it. And thank you, dear listeners, dear viewers. You're amazing. We'll catch you on the next one.
Happy holidays.